I'll concede your point just for brevity, but
What? Brevity? We don't do that around here. It's probably
No.
Citrus, or what is a Capital One Bowl? It used to be Citrus Bowl, right?
oh my
Capital
God,
One.
dude, where have you been?
I just like the real name.
It hasn't been the Citrus Bowl since like, what, 2002?
What was your highlight side dish from Thanksgiving?
Oh gosh, Scotch.
This is the Buck Around, the podcast devoted to all things Wisconsin Badger football from a fan perspective. Featuring your hosts, Richard Branch and Maxwell Brusky.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Buck Around. Welcome back to episode 350 of the Buck Around. I am one half of said Buck Around, Richard Branch, and I am joined, as always, by my observant colleague, Maxwell Brusky. Max, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I probably look studious as we're speaking right now.
Everything since we started this Zoom call has been laser focused on your part.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
This
I guess
is
I'm
not Monday.
locked in.
This is yes. This is a locked in. So
Let's see if it carries over into the recorded portion.
Yeah,
of the
so-
Zoom call.
I'm very excited. We are here on a Monday at lunchtime, as promised in episode 349, to discuss your attendance at the launch.
The launch, yeah.
At the Spring Showcase. Yes.
Spring
Not
Showcase.
Launch.
It's kind of funny because I'm telling people, what I was doing or where I was going or talking about it. And I don't go back to the launch like you do. Like I just say spring game,
Oh, gee.
like spring game, right?
That's more
It's
like
the
a
spring
hopeful.
game. Yeah, and it's funny because that's just kind of what I default to, and everybody knows what you're talking about. But then I have to say, it's actually the Spring Showcase. It wasn't really like a game per se. So yeah, so kind of what we were talking about. I think for everybody's context, I just kind of want to run through kind of the order of things of what happened. So, a lot like a game day, I parked at the usual place, hung out with some of the same people. I couldn't talk anybody to go to the Spring Showcase with me, so I was rolling solo, which is probably a good thing because it enabled me to, as I told my wife, I'm going to be more of a journalist today, if you will. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, I think the final attendance was the final paid attendance was something like 7,900. So I would say for one, like it was kind of what the quote spring game attendance has always been. It wasn't like there were a whole bunch of people noticeably or a bunch less people, so take that for what it's worth. They had I forgot what they had that started at 11, but the scrimmages started at noon, and I got there at probably like, I don't know, maybe like 5 minutes to noon. I think the other stuff was more, family, children oriented, I think. The one noteworthy thing was that, or at least at this point, is they introduced Coach Fickle, and it wasn't like overwhelming applause, which I was kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's the crowd because it's not like that much, but the vibe is definitely like, all right, bud, this it's gotta be the year now. Like whatever obviously the honeymoon's long over, but that kind of feeling was palpable. That it's not like some of the older times, or if you went to whatever Chris used to do or whatever BLM used to do during the spring, and they're gonna start the season in the top 10 or close to the top 10, compete for a league title. There's a little bit more applause and excitement. And this wasn't really bereft of that by any means, but there was no, yay, let's go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, right? So notwithstanding, the atmosphere was still kind of what it had always been in the spring games that I'd been to in the past. And it was nice because there was no snow in the forecast. For folks that remember the original launch, I think you got an entire Midwestern spring season in one day, where it was sunny, then snowing like big flakes for 20 minutes. And then the sun came out again, and it was, I don't know, probably like 45 degrees. So at least you didn't have that this time. So the first thing that I saw, and Rich, this is especially for you, because I know how you like when I talk about this, you could get beer. So I wasn't in the south end zone like last time. I just bought the $5 general admission ticket because I am no longer a season ticket holder. But it was nice that that, they started selling alcohol in the stadium last season, and that carried over for the spring game.
Thank goodness.
So that was a nice bonus for this guy. So I got my varsity ale, and I went up toward, there's only one side. The west side is, off limits. Nobody's over there, so it's only the east side. So I went to the north end of the east side, and I probably was in, I don't know, section P, section Q, somewhere in there. And I wasn't in the bottom section, but then like the middle section and towards the top of that. So I had a good vantage. I don't know. We can post photos if anybody likes. But I was able to see, kind of a lot. And behind the defensive team, when red was on that side of the field, the offense was on the other side. So if you really wanted to get really good views of who's doing what, who's talking to who, who's yelling at who, whatever the case may be, you would have needed binoculars, which of course I forgot, if you wanted to do that for the offense. So
Okay.
so the format you were going to ask me is, I think they had like 2 20-minute periods with I wasn't really a rolling clock. I felt like the clock stopped because it was 2 20-minute periods. But by the time they were done with that, I mean, it had gone for an hour and 45 minutes or more. So, and I think kind of everybody's seen kind of the recaps. I don't know, how necessarily the scoring was, but, this was in that first period. I think the offense, it was the ones versus the ones, and then I think it was the twos versus the twos. And I think I texted you during that first drive, and I said, this, like, offensively, this looks twice as competent as it did before. And I don't know if it's just running the ball. And Leighton Nelson was in that left tackle the whole game, but that number one line, at least from what I saw up until, much later in the day in the second period, didn't really change around that. And JB Benchwell's out. And I don't know if he's I know he's out for the rest of the spring, obviously. I don't know if that's a long-term impact and he'll be ready for fall. I don't remember what the reports are on that, but he was out, so they didn't have him.
Was he there? Did you see him?
Yes. Yeah. He was present with a jersey on, and I have a picture of him. No, and I want to say he was in a boot. I don't think he was on crutches.
And did you see Barrett Nelson? That's the other one I'm curious about, because that's the other one theoretically who's the tackle.
No,
right?
I didn't. Oh, no, I did. No, I did. He was not. I take it back. I saw him, afterwards, which I'll get to. But he was there, and he had his jersey on, and just obviously not playing.
Yeah.
Right. But he wasn't in like street clothes. He had his jersey on, and he was into it. And I'm 99. He had 99. I'm not 99% sure. I'm 100% sure. He had a jersey with his name on the back, which was kind of noteworthy for this whole session, because there were probably at least a good third or more of players that had a jersey without a last name on it.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy. And it's very hard to tell. And I don't know if it was just me, but the entrance that I came into, which is always the one off of Monroe Street where the Barry Alvarez statue is, I did not see like a scorecard or a roster sheet or a program for this event. And, unless you want to keep going to your phone and try and follow the rosters, it was pretty hard. And I'm somebody who pays fairly close attention, but it took me a while to figure out who Nicholas Clayton in white, defensive end, who played a lot and was on the field a lot and did a lot of cool stuff, was number 12. So I'm like, who is this tall, skinny dude? And, eventually I heard over the PA, but that's how I had to do it for some of these guys.
And so when you were watching it, do you get a sense it was like ones on ones? I've seen different things. That's why I was curious. Twos on twos.
Yeah, generally speaking, but it really, I think it went like ones versus ones, twos versus twos. And I'm pretty sure the next drive had Danny O'Neill and not Billy Edwards on it. And then I think the fourth drive, it was Carter Smith and not Billy Edwards.
Okay.
And Billy Edwards was, he was gone for a while. I know I texted you when Milos came on in the second, midway through the second session. So there was that. So just to keep going with the format, right as the first session ended, from where I was sitting, it started to fill in with couples and parents, or couples and their kids, and it got to be a little too much, just annoying. So I needed to go get another beer, so it was perfect. So it was perfect timing. So I went downstairs, got another beer, and then this time when I came back, there was no like halftime or no break between the sessions. But when I came back, I was more towards the south end zone, and I just went up on the right to the front, where the fence is that separates the stands from the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I stood there. I didn't go back and sit down, and I was right behind the defensive bench.
Okay.
So I don't have too much to say about that, except to say that like Nicholas Clayton is really tall and really skinny.
Yeah, I mean, he's
And a lot of those
undersized.
middle linebacker types, like if you see like Cooper Catalano, somebody like that, they don't look that big. Athletic, like Tackett Curtis doesn't look any bigger than me. He's obviously in, vastly superior shape, but I'm like 5'10" and a half, and a normal build, like kind of thing for a 52-year-old guy. But, back when I was in high school, he didn't really look like, if I would have really buffed myself up a little bit, like he didn't look that big. And a lot of those guys they don't look that big. Like you don't see these like,
Well, he's
TJ
what?
Watt looking dudes. Like you just don't see anybody like that.
Well, what
on
about the
on,
edge
on
guys?
the-
Like the inside guys are smaller than the edge guys. Like Curtis is 235 and Allegro is
Mhm.
240-ish. What is he?
Mhm.
245.
Oh, and Allegro, what is the deal with the dummy number 0? Come on, man. Like as a dummy aside, but like, come on. Anyway, yeah, like so the linemen, yeah, they did have some size, and I got some pictures of those. Like the who's number 7? I forgot who that is.
I mean, Tyrese Fearbry.
Yes, he's a large man.
Yeah, but so what's interesting? He's 6'4", 249.
Yeah,
He's
I
not
don't know.
significantly different.
He just looks big, man.
Yeah, maybe he's put a pound. So, anyways, let's do this. Let's get into some specific things because we've set the scene.
Yes.
Interested. Number one, you have now seen, you saw all 4 quarterbacks. I am very curious what you think of the tiering and pecking order of what you saw.
I don't think it's any different than what you think. Like Edwards is clearly the number 1.
Yeah.
But O'Neal had a pretty good day. It's like I didn't feel like they lost much when Danny O'Neal came on. And I know he had a couple drives with the number 1s. And Carter Smith, he just looks raw, but honestly, Rich, this is the best set of 3 quarterbacks that I can remember seeing for this team.
Yeah. You feel that way?
I don't know. And I don't know. I'm gonna wind up eating my words. I will, but I'm going out on a limb, and I'm gonna say that they all looked not just competent, but O'Neal had a couple really nice throws.
Mhm.
The one down the field, it was 42 yards, and and Griffin came up with it. And there was some hand fighting. It might have been called push. I don't know, in a real game, but it was something that, whoa, this actually looks like something that you'd want to see. It wound up having a weirdo penalty or a sack of some type, but I think it was on the very first drive where Edwards kind of moved out of the pocket and hit Vinny Anthony over the middle. And by the way, Vinny Anthony looks like an NFL player. Like, I mean, he looks the part.
Mhm.
And he's fast. So, but that sequence, that play looked like something that you would see on a 3rd down conversion or something like that with a pass rush that Edwards would be able to avoid and has chemistry with Anthony to hit him, on the button, 1st down, really good looking play. And it just looked like, you always felt like with Locke, that's like, oh, like you just barely made it.
Mhm.
Or on those plays like that where there was some level of improvisation or breaking down or, moving in the pocket, which he didn't do a hell of a lot of, but it was something like, I'm glad he made it. Whereas this one was much more confident. Like, oh yeah, we're going to move the ball. We're going to move the ball. We're going to pick this up. We're going to move the ball.
All right. So you think, without a doubt, everybody here is better than Braden Locke. Or at least the top 2, clearly. And Carter Smith's just a freshman, so
Carter
let's not worry
Smith
about
absolutely will be.
Yeah, I'm saying right now. But I mean, like in terms of the guys that there's a reasonable chance of seeing playing in the coming season, whether it's Billy Edwards or Danny O'Neal because of an injury, you think both are better than Braden Locke?
100%.
Okay, I'll take
it. But the main thing, though, is command and presence.
Yeah, it's the look.
Yeah,
it's the lack of the look.
But both Danny O'Neal and Billy Edwards, they are in command of the offense. And I think you'll see a lot more situations where they're going to do plus things, where the position's going to be an asset, not just a game manager, not screwing it up. But I think you're going to see times where it's an asset, which, I mean, that's refreshing, isn't it?
Sure. Let's go to my next question. Dylan Jones. Please, I need confirmation bias. This has been what I've been hoping for. What did you think of him?
He looks like a Badger back.
Does he?
Yeah, not it's not maybe top end, but it's like think of like freshman, sophomore year Corey Clement.
That kind
He
of
looks
style.
like that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. And he's already got the bicep development that Clement eventually turned into Hulk, obviously, as we discussed many, many years ago.
Right.
But Dylan Jones is absolutely on that trajectory. And I think to me, he looks like a lot of the same style where he's not like some bowling ball kind of thing. It's more like that PJ Hill, Corey Clement, where there's a little bit more upright to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's strong. So the thing that you didn't get to see out of Jones, and that's the play that everybody talks about with, it obviously stood out. It was like a 55-yard run where Yakimelli broke through, and I shouldn't even say broke through. I mean, he ran through a pretty big hole.
Yeah.
But it was a kind of thing like, oh, that was a home run, and that was when I was still up in the stands. So that was in the first session. It had to be against the twos and not the ones, or yeah, even the threes.
I
Yeah,
was looking
sure,
at the
sure,
numbers
sure.
in the highlight, and I think it was threes.
Yeah, but that's what I was gonna say is that you kind of it would have been cool to see Jones do that
Right.
if it could happen, and I feel like I know that Atuka's done that in practice, and he looks pretty good. He's a little bit more compact, or like his style is a little bit more compact from what I can tell, or from what I saw. But he looked good too.
So pecking order there. It was obviously Joe. Dupree didn't dress.
Dupree was out.
Yeah.
I didn't see him there, and that's probably he was probably reason number one that I was mad at myself for not bringing the binoculars, because I never was able to track him down.
He was there,
But everybody knew he wasn't going to play anyway.
Yeah, there was a picture of him, but also he was wearing 6. So you got to get used to him not wearing 13 anymore.
Well,
but that's good.
you know,
13 is not a running back number.
I started to text you that. No, 13 is not a running back number, but I was like, this 13, and I thought it was Dupree, but it turns out it's Eugene Hilton, who's a stud.
So that's my next question to you. Tell me about Eugene Hilton, because that's the one that you're just like, I know what Vinny Anthony is. I know you're saying he's better. That's fine. I get sort of where Jaden Ballard probably fits in things. I don't know what to make of, Terrell Henry, Joe Griffin, kind of Chris. You know what I mean? Like they're all in there. Tretch obviously isn't playing.
They were all on the field too. All the 3 guys you just mentioned.
Yeah.
They were all on the field a lot. So I think you're going to see them a lot.
So where was Eugene Hilton in the mix? That's what I'm curious about. Like, what was your sense for where he was? What did he look like? What did you make of him? Like, where is he right now in the pecking order, having only played in spring?
When the starting lineups are announced every game, at least for the first several games, he won't be in the starting lineup. But on the second or third snap of the opening drive, he will be in the field.
Yeah, you think he's going to play that much?
Oh, he's the most exciting player they have on offense.
Really? That you saw? That's like you're ready to say from that scrimmage, like that was the guy that kept drawing your eyes on the offense.
Yes. And I would say this though, like for Griffin or Jaden Ballard, because Ballard will be like when the starting lineup's announced, if they announce 2 wide receivers, Jaden Ballard will absolutely be one of them. Okay. So I think, so put it this way, as long as Tretch is playing, if they're going to announce, or if you see the depth chart, it's got 3 wide receivers and 1 running back, like the 3 wide receivers will be Vinny Anthony, Jaden Ballard, and Tretch.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the 3 starters, without a doubt.
Okay.
But I would say and it wasn't just the catch, and you just haven't seen much of Griffin because he was out last year,
right?
And he's still around. So obviously, and he's gotten a lot of run just from what what people have been able to read. But he was on the field a lot. He's tall, by the way. When I saw him afterwards, yeah, I'll bet you he's 6'3" at least. He's tall.
He's 6'4".
Yeah, he's tall and noticeably tall. So what I was going to say is that, like with Ballard and Joseph Griffin, like Joseph Griffin is probably as good or better than Bryson Green from what I was able to see. Like think of that.
Okay.
Like that's a good, and Ballard is more, he's not as tall, but he's probably 6'1" and has a little more, little more body to him. But, as far as ability wise, you can remember what they were able, what a Bryson Green was able to do. I mean, he was a pretty solid player last year.
Yeah.
I think you've got 2 guys like that in Griffin and Jaden Ballard that are in that range and up to that level of play, which is to say like a reliable starter,
like if
somebody who can make a play, once or twice a game.
Yeah. And if you have a more coherent offense around it, they become more of a factor.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, one cool thing too is there was, I don't know if it was once or twice, it was at least once, was they had Ballard on end around.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Vinny Anthony, I think he'll be doing that too. I mean, he's got speed. I want to say I feel like Hilton might have done that once, but don't quote me. Because the coolest thing about Hilton is that he reminded me of, oh geez, like Illinois spring game back in 2014. And then there was a Northern Illinois game, and I forgot, it was Tennessee Tech, I think they played, that I went to. And there was this wide receiver from Tennessee Tech, and I can't remember his name. It was like James Johnson or something like that. But at the Illinois one, Geronimo Allison was like this, where they were all over the formation. And Hilton was like that. He was doing this, he was doing that, he was going in motion, he was in a slot sometimes. He was all over the formation.
So they're trying to, you think, I mean, the theory there is they're trying to expose him to a lot to get him on the field eventually.
Yeah,
and to stick.
I'd go moreover, they think he can do that.
Okay.
And it was just, he looks like one of those guys, and I bring up those two receivers, having seen them live. Like there was everything they did as a wide receiver was plus. And there was nothing that they couldn't do as a wide receiver. Like Hilton, you'll be able to do back shoulder with him once he starts to, once he masters the position. You can do end around with him. You can have him go, maybe not, total deep threat, but if you did that once or twice a game with him, I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all.
Okay.
And you can see them be possession receivers. You can see them going over the middle. You can see them work out of the slot. And I think what they will eventually have in him, by the end of the season, I think they'll have a really versatile guy. Once he understands the offense and once he's understanding where to be, because he just looks to have so much natural ability, which is why I go back to those other guys too. I mean,
sure,
he's just raw because he's a true rush, and in for spring, but he has that kind of look to him. And for as much as he was on the field, you can tell they think that too.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the defensive side. We'll start front to back.
Yeah, which is where I'm going to be a lot weaker. And I know I texted you about most of the way through that first session, and I'm like, I know I'm pretty offensive heavy, but there wasn't a lot from the defense that stood out for me. But the funny part is, before we get into this though, is that for the recaps that you've read, it's been so much more about the defense, which I thought was interesting to me, because if I was writing the story, if I was in the press box, I would have looked at it a little bit differently, I guess, because I was really excited to see what the offense was going to look like. So with that caveat, fire away.
All right. Front to back here. I have heard more about Charles Perkins, and from a very unscientific perspective, listening to him in an interview, he just sounds like a defensive lineman.
Yes.
He has the deepest voice on earth, and he has that like Southern drawl that you're like, oh, that's a defensive lineman who's like,
yes, yes,
killing people.
Yes.
Did he stand out to you when you watched?
Not really.
No.
But again, like I said, with that caveat, like, there wasn't there. Which is to say, like, I didn't notice any times that anybody in the defensive front seven broke up plays. Doesn't mean they didn't happen. I just don't remember, like, nothing really stood out for me. And I think part of that is just because of that format, because you're not tackling a quarterback.
Right.
And it's really like that, going back to that Billy Edwards one when he hit Vinny Anthony, there was an awesome play. And then all of a sudden, like, the ball's not moving ahead. Like, oh, that was ruled a sack. Like, I didn't
probably
even
a
know.
Guy ran by him.
Yeah, it was something, but you couldn't even tell. So it's really, you really got to know what you're looking at. You probably have to watch a bunch of practices to get a feel for how that works. But I know Perkins was on the field a lot, put it that way.
And so to piggyback that, and it's okay if there isn't much of an answer to it, Dylan Johnson, where was he in the pecking order?
I did not hear his name called until most of the way through the second session.
And so that would have been with the 2s or 3s?
Presumably, but there was, so one of the things that did stand out to me was in that second session. And again, from where I'm standing, I can see the play once it's, beyond the 25, 30 yard line towards, going towards the south end zone. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I'm looking through people, I'm at like eye level with players kind of thing. So it's kind of hard to tell. But there was a sequence when the number one offense came back out of the field. And I don't know if they were playing against the number ones, because I definitely couldn't see the defense because they were playing towards the north end zone. Okay. So I really couldn't see anything, but watching or hearing, like seeing the plays or hearing them announced and hearing the down and distance announced, that when the first team offense came back, they did like virtually nothing. Like it was like a 4 and out, and then okay, try again, guys, and another 4 and out, or because they played a lot of fourth down. And so if he would have been back out there at that time, then he would have been impactful, because it was kind of alarming to me that was, or put it this way, that was the only time on the day where I had some alarm about the offense, where it's like the number ones are back out there. You guys are all lubed up. Like what? I don't know what's going on necessarily, but I know you didn't move the ball for S.
Okay.
And it was probably during that time when I heard Johnson's name finally called, but I only heard him called once, because they would call out who was making the tackles.
Okay. And then my last question is again in the same, well, not in the same room, but down on line. What did you make of 300-pound outside linebackers? Are they just defensive ends?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, basically.
They're just 5 tech DNs.
They didn't really stand out. I guess it probably looked more like, I don't know, like Iowa defense or something like that.
It's a 3-4, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, fair enough. I mean, that was really all I was curious about from the defensive side, because again, I think the defense is changing so much, but to your point, those formats make it really weird. I mean, the Nick Clayton highlight that you've seen circulated is him just running because he can't make a hit, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, that is a tackle. He would have probably sacked him. I get it, but it doesn't look like much.
No, it doesn't. And it was just really hard to tell. And like from the offense, you can see a lot more.
Right.
And what's successful and what isn't.
Yeah.
But they ran the ball a lot, and it looked like normal Badger, quote, Badger football.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for
Jackson
your report.
Aker was all over the place too.
Was he?
Yeah.
He's a funny one. I think it's just, I think the net of Jackson Aker is they like him and he's coachable. And so he just ends up, they want him around.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was trying to think. Like, he's listed as a tight end. He can run the ball. And I'm trying to think of like how he would compare to Austin Ramish or Brady Ewing.
That's
or
what he
is.
is.
Alec Ingold or Derek Watt.
Yes.
And I think he's kind of right there with them. And if you gave him the ball on fullback dive, which they did on the touchdown play, I think he's going to get plenty of chances for that this year. And I think he's effective at it, and he's big enough and strong enough to be good at it. But, be interesting to see how much, how much he's going to get thrown at, or where because he's, again, listed as a tight end. So he's going to be involved in blocking a lot, obviously.
Almost like a fullback.
Game. Yeah, he lined up a couple. Well, that was kind of, I didn't really notice it, but somebody had said that the very first play of the game, the very first play of the scrimmage was high formation with Dylan Jones as the tailback and Jackson Aker as the fullback. Which, I mean, that's got to be for PR, right?
But it's just what the position is. I mean, I don't care. He was a fullback last year. His position isn't changing.
Yeah, no. I get all that. But he was on the field for a lot of snaps.
Yeah.
You know what? You didn't ask us. I'm trying to think. No, we didn't really talk about it. It wasn't really one of the things, but tight end is going to be pretty interesting.
Interesting good or interesting bad?
Don't know yet. Ashcraft changed his number. Now he's Owen Daniels now.
Yep.
Which it took me forever to find him because I didn't know that. But Steck was out there a lot with the ones.
Well, I mean, who else would it be at this point?
I know. But the other part of that too was that not only was Steck out there a lot, he was all over the formation as well, which was that was a little throwbacky.
Okay.
To the Chris days or whatever. And there was one play where I think it was O'Neal was the quarterback, and the way the play went, I don't think Steck started off in a slot, but he was on the line or against the line of scrimmage, made the block, but then he went 40 yards down the field, up the seam kind of thing. One of those. So I don't know if O'Neal, because he was open. Like if O'Neal would have seen him, it would have been, it would have been something, and it would have been something for him to catch a long pass if he hauled it in, and it would have been something that if for observers that, oh wow, a 30-yard pass to a tight end down the seam. Like when's the last time you even saw that? So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Okay,
but he was out there as much as Seagraves was in more than McGowan, and then Emmett Pork was out there too, and I know he had a catch, but he was out there. I mean, he was pretty involved.
Okay.
At least in, at a spring level.
Well, they're still hunting for a body in the portal.
No doubt about it. Yeah,
They
no doubt
are
about it.
looking to bring somebody in who they think is plug and play to some degree in the mix there. Which, if it's all right with you, segues me to one thing I wanted to do before we wrapped the show today that wasn't Spring Showcase related, if that's okay.
Well, you can't move on until I talk about my picture with Coach Fickle. All right, I talked about my picture with Coach Fickle. Now you can move on.
Fine. There you go. Max
He was
got
good.
to-
He was good. He doesn't. I think he has more presence than Paul Christ, but that's not saying much. And he seems to be less cheesy than Brett Bielema. And I would
Okay.
put his presence at about like the same, but obviously it's not like, it's Barry Alvarez standing up there.
Right.
It's like, 4-star general. But
yes.
it was, but no, but before I move on though, because after the sessions were done, they let everybody out on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know about you, but I have never been on the field at Camp Randall Stadium. I wasn't there in 2010 when people got to rush the field, or I've never been in an event where you could be on the field before, and it was pretty cool to do. I thought, and I don't know if that's like a Fickle innovation or something like that, but I don't know that they've ever done that before after a spring game. And I talked to some people that had been to many of them, and they might have done that sometime way back in the 90s, but they hadn't really done that since. So it was pretty cool. And I kind of, you got to walk around and see who's talking to their family, and who's down on a knee, and who has a line for little kids to sign autographs. Like, there was a line for Billy Edwards with all these little kids and a couple of the linemen and stuff like that. But it was, it's kind of neat to see who was doing what. And then I happened to look up, and right behind me was Fickle, and there was a line that you'd expect for him too. So I just hopped in line and went and got a picture with Fickle. But I still think that's pretty, that's pretty cool. Like, you haven't been able to do that, where all you'd have to do is show up to the spring game, pay $5, wait, see 2 hours of scrimmage, and then go out on the field and pretty much go meet whoever you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And go interact with whoever you wanted to, right up to, including every single assistant coach, right up to the head coach of the program. So I don't know. I thought that was, I don't know, I'm going to say it was the highlight of my day, but if I had a couple highlights, it'd be in the group photo.
My one thought would be, that's what you do when you go 5-7.
You know what?
But
There's something to be said for that. That's, I could see, that's not an unreasonable suggestion, but I don't know. I think it just kind of was a little more of the family vibe that they always
Sure.
talk about. Like, you could definitely feel that. And,
Okay.
and coach was very gracious too. Like, he was, if somebody wanted to bend his ear for, not an unreasonable amount of time, but he was, he'd hear you out for 30 seconds or so.
Sure.
Or, and I thought that was pretty cool too. And it just, I don't know, you got a little bit when you go shake somebody's hand and look in their eye and see, and that was pretty cool.
all right. Very well. All right. We have a quick exercise to wrap the show, because I have a problem I've come to realize, because I've been made fun of for this in some circles, that I get a little hyper focused on really unimportant things.
You don't
And
say.
the thing that I am hyper focused on right now, that is to some unimportant, but to me, something I cannot leave alone, are the 2 portal commitments the Badgers have gotten in the last week that have me obsessed. And they are the grad transfer Illinois State quarterback, who presumably is the 5th string quarterback on the team, and the 3rd long snapper that was just added to the roster, who came over from Purdue. And I can't let this go. And it's because, not that I think I'm never going to see what Hunter Simmons looks like unless there's a shot on the sidelines and you get like the 3 quarterbacks by Kenny Guyton, and like he's one of the guys holding the clipboard type of thing. Or
Hunter Simmons did not play, as far as I know.
well, he wasn't on the roster.
I know. No. Like, did not play on Saturday.
Yeah, because he wasn't on the roster.
Well, I kind of have in my mind, I'm like, I wonder if that dude will step out there for a minute.
I mean, he's basically a career backup too. He was
Sure.
not the starter. I mean, this was a body brought in. This is Bobby Dunn. Remember when Bobby Dunn was a spring quarterback? Like, this is what this is. This is a body.
Sure.
And I'm curious what it means. And then the other one is this Nick Levy, the long snapper. And the reason I'm obsessed is I'm trying to figure out why. Like, what's going on? And the thing that hangs over all of this, and Fickle finally did talk about it a little bit leading into this, about how they're going to have some hard conversations with players, because as of right now, they are 8 players over the supposed 105 player limit that everything seems to be leading towards. And again, there's now talk that maybe there's going to be a transitional thing, sort of like with COVID, and guys get grandfathered. So who the hell knows what happens there? But I am kind of fascinated to figure out how they are building this roster. And just because these, like, bringing in a third long snapper when you need to drop to 105 is weird. Because just for reference, so everybody knows, I went back and looked at the roster from 2020 to 2024, just in terms of numbers by position. And the smallest roster they had was 2021, where they had 111 players. So still 6 over. The largest they had was 2024. Last year, they had 119 on the roster. So they averaged 114. And every year they had 3 long snappers. You would assume when you've got to drop, 6, 8, 10 in a roster, one of those drops is going to be a long snapper. But as of right now, the Badgers have 3 long snappers. And I am kind of curious what's going on there. And by extension, as of right now, the Badgers have 5 quarterbacks. And you know what? In the past, they've had 4 some years. So I'm really curious where we're going, or what this portends, or how they build a roster. So I had an idea, just as an exercise for you and me. We can figure out if we're really dumb. I wanted to say you and I are...
That's how you want to phrase that?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to walk through with you and say how many players you think this team needs at a position. And maybe we start with our bare minimum and then we walk it up to 105 if we need to walk it up, or if we have to trim it down, we trim it down.
Yeah.
And just see
sure.
where we end up and see if anything looks weird.
Okay.
So let's start at quarterback.
Okay.
How many players do you think they need at quarterback? Like, you have a 105 player roster. You think 4? I think 4 is my number 2.
Yes.
All right. Running back. For reference, between 2024 and 2020, or the other way around, I should say it, the Badgers averaged 8 running backs. Now, that sometimes included fullbacks, because they might list them separately, that kind of thing.
Do you want to include those together, or just...
Whatever you want to do. However in your mind that works.
Yeah, I think 7 or 8.
Okay. So you say 8. I'm going to say 7. Go to offensive line. They have averaged 17.8, basically 18.
That's
high
what
of 20.
I was going to say 16.
Okay, high of 20, low of 16. 2023, they had 16. So you're going to go...
Bare minimum. Probably, let's go 17.
Okay, you go 17. I'm going to say you probably need 8. I'm thinking practices, right? So you need 3. That's 15.
It's 15 plus 2 or 3.
And then you need, 3 more. So I'm thinking 18. All right.
Yeah, 17 makes more sense. 16's a little light.
Okay, so 17 for you. Wide receivers, they have averaged 14, low of 11 right now, high of 16 in 2024.
Oh my gosh, the number that hits me is 12, but I don't feel like that's right. So go to 13.
13. I'm thinking 13 as well, because you know what it is? You got to think you need sort of the walk-on-y gunners on the punt cover, who's like the backup gunner type thing. Like, there's bodies like that you need like that. Tight end. They've had as many as 9, as few as 6.
Yeah, I was thinking 7 or 8.
So you think 7.
Yeah, give me 7.
They have 7 right now.
They have
I'm
7
gonna
right
say
now.
7.
So they're, okay.
That gets you through, I actually think it's 8. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to 8. And so we are done with offense. For reference, you are at 49 players. I am at 50.
Okay.
So we have spots. Defensive line. How many do you need? They have had no fewer than 12, no more than 14.
No fewer than 12?
Mm-hmm.
Well, since there's, I think, go heavier on linebackers, I'll go like 10 or 11 for defensive linemen.
So you'll go 11. I'm going...
To make that up with linebackers across the board, and I don't want to split up middle and outside.
Okay.
Or inside and outside.
I did split them. They average 19.
Yeah.
They have had 9, no fewer than 9, no more than 11 at inside.
At inside, yeah. So I was going to say I'd like 21, 22 maybe.
So you want to have 20, just want to do 11 and 11?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll put you 11 and 11. I'm going to do 10 at inside, because I also think those are going to be special teamy types.
So what did I say for defensive linemen?
You said 11.
10 or 11. Okay, 11. And then linebackers combined is 22. That's 33.
That's 33.
Okay, so if you have, say, the quote front 7
Mm-hmm.
That's 7 times 4 is 28.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little bit over that.
Yeah, you are, which isn't unreasonable. So here, just to give you a point of reference.
Well, no, and there's always going to be some crossovers between, running back, tight end,
Uh-huh.
inside linebacker, outside linebacker,
Uh-huh.
blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
So last year, they had 31 guys in the front seven. 2023, they had 32. 2022, they had 31. You're right in there. They had 34 in 2021, and in 2020, they had 30.
There you go.
So you're right in the mix. I am going to go, let's see, I did 12 D linemen, 10 inside linebackers. I am going to do 10 outside. Let's call it that. Now, funny, so let's go to corners. I actually think kind of what you were thinking, but I was thinking this with secondary corners and safeties. I actually...
And keeping those together?
Well, in a sense, like to me, they're interrelated because of the nickel spot.
I get it. Yeah, sure.
Because there's overlap in that nickel spot. So you really have 5 positions there in my
Yeah,
mind.
because I think you're going to do like 10 safeties, 15 cornerbacks is 25 altogether.
Yeah, so to your point, last year they had 21 between corner and safety, 10 corner, 11 safeties. In 2023, they had 22. The most they had was in 2022, they had 25, 12 corners, 13 safeties.
Yeah.
Fewest, interestingly, 2021, they only had 17. And by the way, I should
wow.
mention for everybody, this is full roster. This is walk-ons and scholarship.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
No distinction.
Because now going forward, that kind of disappears. So what are you thinking for corner and safety?
Yeah, that's like 15 and 10. Yeah, 10 safety, 15 corner.
So 10 safety, 50. Oh, you're high on corner. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Because I'm going to go 10
maybe
and
23 or 24.
Okay. So how about 12 corner, 13, 12 corner and 11 safety? Does that work for you?
That works. Yeah, that works.
Because they've had as many as 13, as few as 8 at safety. So you're in the margin of error, or whatever you want to call it.
All right. So how much we got left for specialists?
I have bad news for you. You have 105 players on you. Let's finish it and then we'll trim it down. You're at 105. I'm at 103. But okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with kickers. They've had as many as 5 and as few as 2.
I think you need 3.
3 kickers.
Yeah, I think you got to have 3.
Punters. They've either had 2 or 3.
Got to have 2.
Okay. They have had...
And hopefully one of your kickers can punt too.
Yeah. So they have had 3 long snappers every single season.
Makes no sense. You got to have 2.
So you're going 2. I am going 2 as well. I'm going to say 2 kickers, 2 punters. Now we have a problem, sir.
And so if I was at 3-2,
you are at
3,
112.
2 is 7, and I was at 105. I'm at 112, which is pretty much the standard roster for the last God knows how long.
Yeah, you'd fall
like the
within
standard average roster.
So you need to tweak down.
Yeah.
Now, where do you want to tweak down? I think the thing that jumps out to me is you having 5 kickers and punters. Because to your point, I think it's almost like if you're building this and you need to cut a body, we already cut the long snapper, right? So we're at 2 long snappers.
Yeah.
We need to trim a specialist because I have 4. And I think because in that 4, you need a holder, right? You need a holder for extra points. That's what one of those punters is always
Who
the
cares?
holder.
They got to do it, or you go get Chris Maragos or Tony Romo.
You got to find one. But
Sure.
I don't think
maybe your fourth quarterback. I don't know.
Maybe it's your Hunter Simmonses of the world.
Yeah, or
But-
like I said, or Chris Maragos,
Yeah,
something like that.
All right. So, are you cutting a kicker or punt? You're going to go 2 and 2. I
I
guess?
think you have to. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to go 2 and 2. I think you have to.
To your point, I'm assuming going forward, you've got a kicker, punter. Then I guess you might have the kickoff guy. Like that's the thing is teams now may not be able to just have a kickoff guy and
I
place
think you're
kicking
right.
Guy.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That starts to get the screws get turned there. And like you have a holder and a punter, but maybe that punter is a swing guy who can kick in an emergency type of thing. Or you have a punter who can kick off. So you are
Okay.
now at 111. I am at 109. So I am 4 over. You are 6 over. You're in deep doo-doo. Where do you have big numbers? The only thing I would say
Well,
is,
no. Let's just do this. I'm
Okay.
at 6. So let's just go drop a corner, drop a safety, drop a linebacker, drop an offensive lineman.
So you go to 11
That's
corners,
4.
10 safety, and then what was the other one you said? An outside?
Offensive line.
That's down to 16. You're going to 16 offensive linemen?
It's got to be done.
Okay.
Drop a wide receiver.
Oh, that's going to take you to 12.
And now I'm 5.
You're
5,
2
so
away.
I'm 2 away.
You have 11 outside linebackers. I think that's where you're dropping. I think you
Yeah.
can. I honestly don't think you can drop your offensive line. If you get an injury in that offensive line, because you got to remember, you need, like, in season, you need 1s, 2s, and 3s, and you need a scout team. You don't have 1s, 2s, and 3s in a scout team in your offensive line. I mean, you have, your pair and a spare type thing.
Well, you didn't used to, but you might now.
Because, I mean, so in 2023, they did run out there with 16 offensive linemen, did the same thing in 2022, but everybody said they were thin. Last year, they had 20. They had 19 linebackers last year, 18 the year before. You have 22. Do you want to trim those? Like one of each?
Yeah,
So we'll
one
go.
of each.
Okay.
So now I'm good.
So you're at 105. I think you're crazy with your offensive line. I think you're too thin. But let me do mine and then we'll compare them.
But what if I'm too thin? Am I going to move? Am I going to take from D line to O line?
Right?
I don't think I would. I think D line's most important on defense.
So I am going to take one of my tight ends and I'm going to drop from 8 to 7. That gets me to 108.
I had 7.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my wide receivers from 13 to 11. That gets me to 106.
Yeah.
And I now have, but where am I going to get the last one? I guess it's safety. I'll take a safety. So I have 20 defensive backs. You have 21.
How many defensive backs do I got?
You have 21.
21. Okay.
We both have 20 linebackers in and out. I have 12 defensive linemen. You have 11. We both have 7 tight ends. You have 12 wide receivers. I have 11. I have 18 offensive linemen. You have 16. I have 7 backs. You have 8. We both have 4 quarterbacks. We're both at 105. But what's interesting to me is like your offensive line would be historic, like on the
historically thin. So if I took a wide receiver,
you could go down
for an offensive line. Well, no, I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
So that gets you 17
It kind of all depends on what you have, too. I don't know.
Of course.
Yeah.
But what I do wonder is, does it mean tight end becomes 6 guys? Because maybe one of those running backs, that's the other thing is you have 8 running backs, which envisions a fullback probably in there. You might be at 7 at running back. Like if you go 7 at running back, we end up at the same numbers basically. But that was what I thought was interesting is some of these are going to be light. Somewhere you're going to have to be light to get to 105.
Somewhere you're going
no way to get around it.
Well, and that's, I think it's even tougher because where you can be light, I think would depend on, what personnel you have in the building and committed, which is going to be so fluid.
Well, but also where can you get light fairly predictably and bring a body in?
Yeah.
It's specialists like the long snapper room. You're not going to have the Peter Bowdens of the world. I really don't think anymore. Like you're not going to have, it was funny when I was going through and doing the math. I'm like, oh, there he is again. There he is again.
Well,
I don't think you're going to see a ton of those.
Wait a second though, because I think there's probably out of that Peter Bowden type, I think there's probably 20, maybe 30 of those kids every year in the country that are like superlative long, like where you are going to be a long snapper. Like you've done this for the last 6-7 years. You've been to all the camps. Like that's your thing. But but there's not that many of those that are in that level.
I also don't think a team is going to say, I'm ready to take a guy straight out of high school and not have a plan B. Like you're going to have another long snapper on the roster. And like you need to have 2 of them, like in some way. So I think what it's always going to be doing is these guys, like the one from Purdue, there's a coach change and he's like, I got to find, I'm just going to go find a team and they got to come cheap because you're not going to spend NIL money or whatever it's going to be in the future, the revenue stuff. There are aspects to it that I find.
Well, and I think of this too, like there's the guys like the Bengals long snapper has been Clark Harris for a long time, who was at Rutgers, and he was drafted as a tight end, and he was a draftable tight end, and he wound up being a long snapper. Or Henry has a friend that was in his high school class he's been at a couple schools as a long snapper, and if you saw him, you wouldn't think of like lineman type. You'd think of like maybe a defensive end or an outside linebacker.
Yeah, they're not big.
In terms of like his body style.
Yeah, none of them are big.
So yeah, none of them are that big, but they have a skill for it. Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I don't think you're going to be able to have two of them all, or you only have three.
You're not
But
having
even
three
two of
anymore.
them is two of them is really going to be freaking pushing it.
And are you going to be comfortable with a true freshman? You know, I mean, I guess you're going to have to be.
You're going to have to. You're going to have to be.
But it cycles back to me what I think is interesting about these two guys. If I can go back to looking at the fifth quarterback and a spring transfer window long snapper portal, one of the long snappers is going. I'm assuming the Arkansas guy's gone. Like it's not working. And
yeah,
he's out.
that bringing in Levy,
Yeah.
that he's going to replace somebody who's on the roster currently.
Yeah, something's not working there. And then I don't see how they're bringing in 5 quarterbacks for a 105 unless, you know, somebody's like Milo. I mean, I'm not predicting anything, but it just seems like maybe Milos is like, you know what? After spring, I want to play. I'll drop a level, you know, do what the guy did last year. Whose name I can't think of, it went to Yale.
No, yeah, the Yale guy. Yeah.
The guy, I'm wondering if that's the situation. And like everybody just, you know, can look with Milos. It's like everybody can look each other in the eyes and shake hands. And it's like, thank you so much for.
Oh
skit,
yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And out he
Maybe
goes.
that's why he got some playing time.
Yeah,
on
like we'll get you
Saturday.
some
It's like,
film.
yeah, get just a little exposure. And,
Yeah. So you can.
I wish I could have seen him play, because it was just from where I was. They were coming towards the south end zone, and it would have been like, you know, on the 30, 40 yard line on the other side of the field, coming towards the south end zone. But I couldn't. I just heard his name called, and I heard him get a completed pass, but I didn't get to see him play.
All right. So
if only for you, Rich. If only for you.
Well, thank you for indulging my exercise. I just thought it was an interesting thing to work through.
But that's a good exercise, though.
To see what they're going to have to do and where the cuts are going to be. But
and different teams obviously are going to do that a different way. Like
yes.
Iowa's probably going to keep 9 tight ends and 10 running backs, or, you know, or something like, you know, I don't know, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Phil Longo,
right,
I'm going to have 3 running backs, 2 tight ends, and then 80 wide receivers.
Right. All right. So I think we have covered everything. We are coming up on an hour here.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. But there's 2 more practices, I believe, left. 2 or 3.
I think there's 2.
Okay, 2. And then next week I am traveling, but would be available on Monday or Tuesday if we wanted to do something.
I think we are officially shifting into a summer schedule.
Yeah.
Which will be, as we said, when we come back, we will move into depth charts. We didn't get to it, but we will. Sean, your question is here. I did want to do, Max and I were talking before we recorded. I was like, let's do this 105 exercise. Do this before it becomes moot because of the portal. And by the way, I think there is actually more practices. Today is a practice. No, there's 4 practices, Max. So there's
4.
More.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say 2 didn't sound right.
But not important. Anyways, we'll be back. Not this next week or this week's. Today stands for this week. Next week we'll potentially be back and start digging. Sound good?
Potentially. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah.
Little on-air planning for everyone. On that note, Max, until the next time.
All right. Until the next time.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Enjoy the conversation? Head on over to buckaroundpodcast.com to find all the ways to connect with the show, links to our Patreon page, and feeds for every major podcasting platform. We want to thank each and every one of our patrons. You make this podcast possible. This has been The Buck Around, Badger football analysis from a fan perspective.